Welcome back. Now, yesterday, the uMmkhonto weSizwe party unveiled its National High Command leadership at a media briefing in Johannesburg. The structure will be the highest decision-making body, consisting of 8 leaders, including former President Jacob Zuma as its president, former Western Cape Judge President Dr. Hlophe as the deputy president, and former EFF Deputy President Floyd Shivambu as the National Organiser. The party was formed in December last year, contested in this year's elections, and went on to become the official opposition in Parliament. So to talk to us more about the latest developments within the MK party, we're joined by Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, who is a political analyst and director for the Centre for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution at Nelson Mandela University. Professor Breakfast, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much for having me, Sakina.
So there has been concern about the lack of structures within the uMmkhonto weSizwe party after their performance in the May 29th election. So your analysis on the party's National High Command as it was unveiled yesterday?
Sakina, in my view, there's a difference between appointment and election. The leaders who have been assembled of late have not been elected. By contrast, they have been appointed. When you elect people, it's when the rank and file elects its own leaders by themselves, right? But when you appoint people, it's when you pick and choose who should serve in a particular committee or structure. I think there is a need for the democratization of the party, as opposed to party bureaucrats having a grip over the party in terms of decision making. The party of late, it describes itself as a left-wing movement, meaning that the party is a vanguard. Therefore, the vanguard must be driven by the rank and file, the working class, not by party bosses, whereby they make decisions on top and they bring them down to the bottom. I think MK has done very well, Sakina, of late. I think you've said that when you were sort of like setting the scene. MK did very well in the recent general elections, but it's one thing to do well in the elections. It's another thing to build upon what you have done in terms of maintaining the momentum. So the party needs to bridge its gaps. Now, the argument which was put forward is that no, the party is sensing a danger that elections might be inspired by foreign tendencies, whereby money might be used to influence the outcome. Elections, by definition, are about political competition. You can't help that. You can only develop a framework. So the arrangement that exists, the only explanation that I can give for it is that maybe there is a predetermined outcome that is designed for the upcoming conference by the party bosses.
Well, Prof, the party did say that there were extensive consultations throughout and going into this particular selection of the National High Command, which is the leadership structure. And it includes, of course, as we said, former President Jacob Zuma, who is the president of the party. Then you have Dr. Hlophe as the deputy president, and also former Minister Ntsikelelo. He's the national chairperson. So what do you make of the names coming up in this top 8 structure of MK?
Well, it's interesting names, Sakina. But again, I still maintain that it's some kind of political co-option, because we don't know to what extent the consultation has taken place. I mean, if you can consult to constitute a committee of this nature, why not, hold a conference? But anyway, I think it's interesting names that have been put forward, but also it's interesting that there have been 18 people who have been recalled. So it will be interesting who's going to replace them, because we know that there is a court case that is underway, because the people have been recalled are unhappy about the fact that they are struggling at the moment to make ends meet because they had to resign from their jobs in order to become members of parliament. So it's going to be interesting who's going to replace them in parliament.
So just to that point, we know 10 of those 18 people actually took the party to court. They are trying to obviously interdict some parliamentary processes, because one of the things that was said during the press briefing yesterday that preceded this one of the announcement of the leadership structure of MK, in that press briefing it was said that a letter was written to the Speaker of the National Assembly, but they were not informed about this development. So how do you think this is going to affect what the party is trying to do? The fact that, as you say, you have now disgruntled members who have had to leave their previous jobs in order to take up these positions. And one would imagine that they have now adjusted their lives to contend with what is to come. The perks, the salaries of being a member of parliament, moving in order to take up positions in another city in some instances. How do you think that will impact relationships within the party going forward?
I think there is a tension that is brewing in the party because of that, because those individuals at the moment are struggling to make ends meet. Of course, people don't join a political party in theory to make ends meet, but they're talking about people who were working before. That's what they're saying, that they were working before, and they asked if they could resign, and the party did confirm that yes, they can leave their jobs. But now they've been recalled, and that they have made financial commitments. So now they've been taken out of parliament. How are they going to honor those financial commitments? So I think it's a matter of a concern, even for other party members, because that could also happen to them. I think it's something that is really posing a threat to the stability of the party. They did indicate at some point that they were not well aware about the letter which was written to the Speaker, and that they are going to institute a legal action against that, because that letter was written without their knowledge.
And of course, you know, you listen to those developments, and now you're told about new MPs being sworn in, and just looking at that process and how things are unfolding, dealing with the disgruntled element, dealing with those who are waiting and ready to ascend to office. Should the party be more circumspect in how they are dealing with this? Should they perhaps hold back slightly? Because, you know, what if the court rules in favor of those who have taken the matter before the bench? You know, how do you think the party should handle this matter?
No, I fully concur with you, Sakina, that the party needs to be circumspect and needs to avoid these kinds of tensions going forward. Because, I mean, if, for instance, you are going to recall people who were part of the campaigning process, and then you replace them with people who are not part of the electoral machinery of the party, you are going to make other people have broken hearts because they've contributed to the electoral outcomes of the party. For instance, the names that you mentioned earlier on, the big names, I don't think that they were part of the campaigning process of the party. So what are you saying? I mean, for instance, how did those names get on the list in the first place? If the party says that, no, those people should never have been on the list, how did that happen? It doesn't make sense in my view. So you can't say that after people have been sworn in, that they should never have been sworn in the first place. So the party needs to manage that better in future.
And also turning to Floyd Shivambu, because since his resignation from the EFF, you know, he's been in the news, and he is now given the position of National Organiser. And let's talk to that, because social media was a buzz yesterday about this, you know, some saying it shows maturity, the fact that he's willing to serve, and others saying, no, doesn't make sense. Not a great move for Floyd Shivambu. How do you read it?
Obviously, Sakina, it stands to reason that one of the reasons why he walked out of the EFF there must have been a carrot that was dangled in front of him. There is no way he would have left the EFF for nothing, even though maybe there was a fallout between himself and Julius. So I think maybe the rationale behind this appointment, not election, is to make him have a direct link with the rank and file in the build up to this conference, so that maybe he can take over on matters of leadership, because that is a strategic position to be a national organizer. He's going to interact with the ordinary members on the ground. So I think it's going to play a role in terms of the standing of the branches going forward. But also to expand on this discussion, when he was making a speech, we heard him also taking a swipe at Julius, responding to what Julius had said on Monday, that he has been betrayed, that he has never betrayed the struggle, that the struggle is not about individuals. Now, that is an interesting assertion, because before they went separate ways, they had agreed that they are not going to attack each other. But now we see that both of them are not honoring that a commitment. Again, the question begs, what is going to happen to this block of opposition parties in parliament? Because MK has, I know Malema says there's nothing of the sort, but they work side by side in parliament. But if now they are going to be seen to be attacking each other in public, what is going to happen to that alliance?
And of course, this, of course, is the question on many people's lips. How do you see this party progressing? You know, the longevity of the party, given the current developments. And of course, we hear a lot of pronouncements from other parties in terms of MK and what they think is going to happen. But your view, Professor, on where MK is likely to go?
I think, Sakina, there is a need for ideological clarity in terms of what the party stands for. My view is that, I know, you know, there were all sorts of things that were said yesterday, which is fine, that the party is a liberation movement, blah, blah, blah. But my view is that the party needs to have a constitution that outlines the thinking of the party in terms of what the party stands for. But my view is that MK is an extension of the Zuma faction that walked out of the ANC because it was discontent because of the way things were in the ANC, and they wanted a platform of their own to fight back, because they hold the view that the state machinery was being used to harass them, among other things, right? But now you've got to clarify what the party stands for, because I've always held the view that the party has always stood for radical economic transformation, in my view, which is a form of nativism, you know, a form of populism that is used to conceal the failures of leaders of liberation movements, or some kind of a romanticism about the past. So the party just needs to hold a conference, adopt a constitution, make sure that the rank and file is involved in that, and then chant the way forward in terms of the strategic direction of the party.
Well, we unfortunately have to leave it there as we're out of time. But thanks so much for sharing your views with us there. And that, of course, Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, and Professor there is from the Nelson Mandela University.